Let's talk about choices. We make choices every day, all day long. What to have for breakfast, who to spend time with, what program to watch on television, or what video to stream on the internet. And on a larger scale, we choose what job to apply for, what person to marry, what religion or philosophy to live by. These are choices we all make. But do we really choose these things? Are our choices real, and are they free? You know, there are many voices in our society today that tell us that we don't really make truly free choices. Oh yeah, we make choices, but not independent choices. There's a viewpoint, for example, called Physicalism that says that people's motives and actions are nothing more than brain chemistry. Now, you may not have heard that this view is called Physicalism, but that view is often taught in schools and it's portrayed in the media and many other places in our environment that we live in. They would say in Physicalism that according to Physicalism, choices are just chemical reactions in our brains. And, you know, there is an element of truth in the idea that choices involve brain chemistry. For instance, we all know that certain kinds of brain damage can cause personality changes, which can influence the choices we make. And so can chemical imbalances of one kind or another. Drugs of all sorts, disease, even foods can affect our thinking and the choices that we make. Now, another view is called Determinism. Determinism says that our motives and actions are simply the sum total of our experiences. So your childhood, whether it's bad or good, the events during your life so far, whether they're positive or negative, those are the things that shape your thinking, your choices, and your behavior. So according to determinism, your past and your current environment exactly determine what you're going to be. If your current environment and your past were different, you would have made different choices. You would be a different person. In other words, your environment completely shapes you. Now, is there some truth in this idea? And of course there is. There's no question that we are shaped to a significant degree by our past and by what's happening to us right now. So we can agree that brain chemistry and environment do influence our choices. Okay, saying we're influenced by chemistry and environment is one thing, but these two views of how we make choices are saying something far more radical than that. According to physicalism and determinism, you and I have never made a truly independent and free choice in our lives. Physicalism says that our every choice, our every action is just brain chemistry. Determinism says that our every choice, our every action is the inevitable result of the chain of events that have made up our lives so far. And these views claim that there is no independent entity within us called the mind or the soul that makes choices and can overcome factors that influence these choices. These two views, physicalism and determinism, tell us that we are biological machines. We are chemical reactions, maybe very sophisticated chemical reactions, but when it all boils down, we're just chemistry. Or, according to determinism, we're just products of our environment. We're little boats in a vast ocean driven by the winds and the tides and by chance. So do you see where this is leading? If we cannot and never really do make independent choices through something called the will or the mind, then there is no independent will and no independent mind. In other words, there is no independent you in there somewhere that can overcome all the other factors that are influencing you. There is no essential person that can rise above the current chemical makeup of your brain and the sum total of your life experiences. There's no independent entity in you above your chemistry and your past experiences. Do you see that these views lead to the inevitable conclusion that you really don't have what the Bible calls a soul? You're just an animal that reacts to events like a cow or a bird or a beetle, depending upon its chemical makeup and its environment. And no soul means no accountability, no responsibility, and no eternity. Now, of course, most religions teach that we do have souls, and the Bible in particular teaches that we are more than chemistry and environment. For example, in Genesis 2:7, we read these words: "The Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." Now, the original Hebrew word for living being is nephesh, soul. And that word is used to human beings in contrast with the animals, which are not classified as nephesh in the Bible. I think that deep down, nearly everybody agrees with the Bible on this point, even those who claim to be physicalists or determinists. Otherwise, why do we hold people accountable for their choices and actions? Now, it's fine when some sociology professor or some news commentator or someone in a movie says that a person who committed a shocking murder is just a product of his or her brain chemistry, or that they're a product of their dysfunctional upbringing. And we might nod our heads and we might accept that explanation because the murder affected other people, not us. So it's easy for us to rely on the popular theories of our times and not hold the murderer accountable. The murderer really couldn't help it. It's the murderer's family that's at fault for a bad upbringing. It's society's fault because of the horrible living conditions that they experienced. Or the murderer is not accountable. They're just the unfortunate result of a chemically altered state of mind. It's too bad, but that's just the way things are sometimes. But when someone we love is murdered, or robbed, or injured, or treated unjustly, we demand justice. We want that person to be held accountable for his or her actions. Why? Well, because it affects us personally. We're in pain. We're outraged by the damage caused. But do you see that the pain reveals something true about us? Pain does not allow us to indulge in these false and naive views of physicalism and determinism, because deep down we know they aren't true. Deep down we believe in real choice. Deep down we believe in the human soul. Deep down we believe that the murderer could have done otherwise. Despite bad environment and imbalanced brain chemistry, the murderer, he or she, could have risen above all of that and chosen to act differently. We deeply believe that, at least at some basic level, choices are free and independent. Now, here's a simple example. Your 3-year-old is throwing a nasty temper tantrum because you have told her it's nap time. But she wants to continue playing with her toys, and you know that she's not sick and she's not overly tired. She's simply refusing to take a nap because she would rather play. Now, you don't waste any time blaming her bad behavior on brain chemistry. And you don't shrug your shoulders and say that she can't help it because she's had some bad experiences which are causing her to react to the idea of taking a nap. I mean, poor thing. She has a nap phobia, and your suggestion triggered her tantrum. No. Any reasonable parent assumes that their little darling can make a real and independent choice. The tantrum is not inevitable. She could choose to accept that mom and dad know best, that they love her, that they should be trusted and obeyed in this matter, and that she could stop what she's doing and climb in bed. Now, at 3 years old, she may need some encouragement because she is less able at that age to control herself. So when she throws a ring-tailed fit, you may take away a privilege, or you may give her a few temporary but attention-getting taps on her backside to reinforce good decision-making. The goal is that as she matures, she will learn to master her emotions and her desires in a positive way. In other words, you are training her to rise above her brain chemistry and her environment. And you're helping her develop something that God placed within her as a nephesh, a living being. You are helping her develop her eternal soul. The Bible is all about human beings having eternal souls and therefore having the ability to make true, independent choices. Choices that can rise above the chemical state of our brains and the circumstances of our lives. In Genesis, for example, Abraham chose to look beyond his circumstances and trust God at several key points of his life journey. In Isaiah chapter 6, the prophet Isaiah made a definite choice to accept his calling as a spokesman for God. And even Jesus, Son of God though he was, humanly made a radical choice in the Garden of Gethsemane. He chose to overcome every human inclination that he was experiencing and the extreme chemical state that his brain must have been in when he made the choice, not as I will, Father, but as you will. The central message of the Bible is faith. Faith is fundamentally a choice. In fact, it's the most basic of choices. We choose either to trust deeply in God or to reject that kind of trust and rely on something else. And maybe we choose to trust in ourselves, or maybe we just choose to avoid making any definite choice at all. The New Testament, of course, clarifies that faith is trust in God through receiving Jesus Christ. Now, maybe you've heard of him, the great 20th century author C.S. Lewis. He said this: "There are ultimately only two kinds of people. Those who say to God, 'Thy will be done,' and those to whom God says in the end, 'Thy will be done.' Which type of person are you?" And it really is your choice. No matter which basic choice you make, you will continue to make real choices throughout your life, in how you see yourself and in how you treat people. And it's true, your life circumstances and your brain health are factors. But ultimately, the kind of person you become is a product of that series of free and independent choices you make in your life. Who we become and what our destiny will be really is our choice. This is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries, promoting effective 21st century faith. See you next time.